Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ellie Garrity, and I am the manager of Alumni Career Programs for the University of Maryland Alumni Association. We're excited that you're able to join us for today's webinar, The Top 10 Health and Fitness Tips to Reach Your Goals in 2020, presented by Kathy Richards. This webinar is part of the Alumni Association's Professional Development webinar series, in which we hope to provide thought-provoking and valuable content that will help alumni like you achieve your personal and professional goals. We have a lot of information to cover today, but we will be taking questions throughout the webinar. Feel free to submit any questions using the question box located in the GoToWebinar control panel. Also, a recording of today's webinar and slides will be available and shared following today's session. Now about our host, Kathy Richards. Kathy is an exercise physiologist, University of Maryland alumna, and best-selling author of Boom, 6 Steps to a Longer, Healthier Life. Through her company, Inspiring Vitality, she provides lifestyle and wellness coaching, consulting, and presentations, helping individuals and organizations maximize physical health, brain function, and energy levels. And now we will get started. Kathy, take it away.
Okay, hey there, thank you, Ellie. You know, I don't know how many of you attend webinars very often, but I teach webinars fairly frequently, and I will tell you, when you're doing it, it's a little bit like giving a presentation with a blindfold on. I am bummed that I cannot see each of you. I know you're there, and you can't see me, I can't see you. But I do want to stress what Ellie said, that this is informal. We've got an hour together where I want to just give you some tips that will help you with general health and fitness, but it's informal enough, we're a small enough group that you really can shoot your questions away into that question box as we go throughout, and we'll also have time at the end for some dedicated questions. But I love talking to Terps. I'm still here in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm not sure how many of you are local or calling in from somewhere else, but I want to tell you, start now here with our first slide, a little bit about me. I am embarrassed about that first photo there. That is my aerobic days, big hair days, but the Terp is featured prominently. I graduated with kinesiology as an undergrad, then exercise physiology in grad school, all at Maryland. And the reason why I wanted to show you a little bit about my background is to show you the angle I'm coming into this topic from. So I spent a good deal of my early career at Marriott doing corporate wellness, and then took a break and published my first book, The Busy Mom's Ultimate Fitness Guide, when my kids were small, because I left corporate America to kind of do my own thing and have a more flexible schedule when my kids were young. And then I joined full-time workforce again for Asbury, which is a retirement community where the average age is 85. So really, I wanted to take my experience in wellness for younger populations in a corporate setting, and then what I learned with the 85-year-olds. When you're surrounded by over 1,000 85-year-olds all day, every day, you learn a few things about their idea of wellness and fitness and lifelong vitality. And so I ended up leaving Asbury and starting another business called Inspiring Vitality, and I just published Boom, which is about what we can learn about aging and to apply that in our younger years. So, because there's so much we can do now to age as healthfully as possible, and January is a popular time to start thinking about these things. So, a lot of my work I try to categorize into these 3 buckets, which I call a strong body, a sharp brain, and endless energy. And I love these little graphics here, especially, don't we all wish we could have a thumb drive inserted into our brain? That would be pretty cool, right? But I wanted to start off by finding out a little bit more about you all who are listening here. So Ellie's going to pop up a poll for you. And I'm curious because we have a pretty general topic here about health and fitness goals. So what is your biggest priority? Are you primarily looking to lose weight, exercise regularly, eat healthier, better sleep, manage stress better? I think you can also write something else in, and we're seeing all the responses come in. I'm not sure if you all can see that too, or just me. Let's see. So far, exercise is topping it up there. Oh, now it went down. I guess if we give it a minute, it'll shake out. Can you guys all see that? So 71% lose weight, exercise regularly, and eat healthier. 40% get better sleep and manage stress better. So I think I guess I kind of hit the biggies. That's what we all want to do, right? And so the good news is that there are some habits that when you do certain basic health habits, they can impact all of those categories. So it's not like we have to have a different list of recommendations for those different goals. It's really kind of, a lot of these things are rolled in together. So we're talking in 10 tips today. So tip number 1 is what I already alluded to. Think about the long term. So this is the question I pose after working with older adults. Have you thought about this? Even when, let's say when you're 25 or 35 or 45, what type of 85-year-old do you want to be? Have you thought about that? When I ask that question, I get answers back. I don't know if you can pop it into the chat box. People say, I want to be mobile. I want to be energetic. I want to, be able to travel the world, because I have seen 85-year-olds who are traveling the world and doing Zumba. And I've been around 85-year-olds who are in a skilled nursing setting with cognitive and physical ailments that make their quality of life really lower than they had pictured for themselves. And so the good news is that there is something called the MacArthur Foundation study that shows us that successful aging is due 70% of the time determined by our lifestyle and all these decades leading up to the age of 85. So when you think about what you're doing now, it has a direct impact on your quality of life as we age. So the same health habits that are going to give you energy now and help you lose weight and feel better now are also going to spell the difference between what you're doing, how healthy you are compared to the next person at 85. So I invite you to give some thought to what your life is going to be like at 85, because whatever age you are now, guaranteed you are saying to yourself, how on earth did I get this old already? Does anybody say that? I mean, I wish I could see have you raise your hand to say, how many of you think, how am I already this old? So and when we think about healthy aging, there are 3 different geographical areas, or not just geographical areas, demographic areas where people are doing it well. We have the highest percentage of centenarians where people live past the age of 100 within the Seventh-day Adventists and in Sardinia and in Okinawa. So if you want to age well and be healthy long term, you would want to follow, what do they do? So what do these groups have in common? They don't smoke. They eat a high percentage of fruits and vegetables in their lives. They are active every day. They put family first, and they prioritize a social life. So those are the things that are not complex. They're not brain surgery. They're not hard. Like when we think of this, it makes sense, right? We've heard these things before. And what I'm going to encourage you to view all of the information that we cover today is not that it's new, because a lot of what I'm going to tell you is not going to be new. I think some things will be. But it's more about that old phrase, I know what I need to do, but I can't seem to do it. So how can we take the tips that are going to mean the most to us and give us the results we want, and how can we really apply them on a regular basis consistently enough to actually see the results that we want? But as we age, it's really a kind of a mindset shift to think that what we often attribute to the aging process is really due to the gradual inactivity that typically comes with aging, both mental and physical, not the physiological aging process itself. So if I were to ask you to raise your hand and say, hey, how many of us have tried to blame something on aging? Oh, it's just because I turned 40. Oh, I turned 50, or whatever age, that we don't have identical aging experiences. I mean, there are some things that will happen outside of our control, but a lot, so much is within our control. And the tagline to my business is that it's never too early and never too late. So you guys are on the never too early end. Actually, I don't have age demographics. You certainly could be an alum who is in the older adult category. But my guess is a lot of you are. It's in the never too early phase. So what you're doing now is going to lay the groundwork for healthy lifestyle and healthy outcomes in the later years. But working with 85-year-olds, there are people who can start exercising and changing their habits when they're 75 or 85, and the muscles still respond. your body still responds to changes in habits at any age. So it's really phenomenal. So tip number 2, after we're thinking about this long term, what can we do? I am an exercise physiologist, as Ellie said, so obviously exercise is going to be one of my biggest tips. But the problem is, even though we know it's good for us, a lot of times we haven't internalized just how good it is for us. And how many people can identify with this picture here? So yes, we know we need to exercise, but look at these people taking the escalator up. So I hope y'all are laughing out loud in your seats there. But seriously, when we look at muscle mass and strength as we age, the typical experience is that we lose 50% of our leg strength between the ages of 20 and 80. So it would mean that by the time you're 80, it will be difficult to get out of a chair. So I want you guys to do this with me. I know I can't see that you're doing it, but I'm going to ask you to scoot to the end of your chair and cross your arms over your chest and stand up, and then sit back down without using your arms to push off your chair. Now, I just did it. I hope you guys did too. Now, what happens as we age is you can't even push. You need to push with your hands to get out of a chair. How many of us want that to happen to us? So we need to keep our legs strong, and the primary way to do that is through strength training exercise. So when you do exercise and weight training, that is what's going to be make the biggest difference in our overall health and fitness. And here is my quick list of all the other benefits of exercise. And when I do longer training sessions, a lot of times I go through this whole thing about pretending I'm a pharmacist. And if I were to give you a pill and you looked at the bottle and this is all the benefits it said, you'd be like, give it to me, because it's really astonishing when we think about all of the benefits of exercise. That it really should be prescribed just like a medication. It has that many benefits, and it really has more far-reaching benefits and more categories of your life than any other single thing you can do. So for instance, those of you, it's a sneaky thing. When I asked you and did the poll, what's your #1 health and fitness goal? You want to lose weight. Guess what? You need to exercise. You want to exercise regularly? Oh, see, there you go, exercise. But getting better sleep and managing your stress, those are also influenced by exercise. Eating healthier. Most people find that once they start exercising regularly, they choose healthier foods. They start looking at food as fuel. So it's going to help all of those in all of those goals. The 3 main areas of exercise are strength training, stretching, and aerobic exercise. And they are all important. I love to focus on strength training because I feel like it doesn't get the credit that it's due or the respect that it's due. But all 3 are important. The most important thing in starting, though, is picking the kind that you will do consistently. And in my book, Boom, I go into a kind of a 4-level framework here, where level 1 is just move. Level 2 is a little more, still stuff you can do at home, but it's not very time consuming. Level 3 is a little more, and level 4 is a really big full-fledged routine. And the way I have devised my approach, my philosophy towards fitness is I have this, it says NTE and NTL, so never too early has a whole track of exercises that are appropriate for younger populations and more able-bodied people, and never too late is for older adults or people who have mobility issues. But I decided to publish Boom because I really believe that most people, when they think about exercising, they think way too much, way too soon, and that they kind of shoot themselves in the foot by either doing all or none. And it doesn't have to be this way. That's why I encourage you to think about this level approach of doing a little or a little more, but that whether you're in a phase of life or in just what your interests draw you to, if you want to do a little or a medium amount or a lot, that's going to change through your life. But you never need to be in the position where you're not doing anything at all. So that's what's really important to me. And one of the phrases that I like to say is that habit is more important than content. So that's the thing, getting into the point where you're doing it regularly. So how do we do it regularly? It's the mindset. So your mindset is tip number 3. It matters more than anything else. It's what's going to set you up for success or failure. And so here is my poll question number 2 Ellie is going to help us with. So if you're not exercising regularly, what is the biggest reason that keeps you from exercising regularly? What is it? Is it no time, too tired, too boring, something else? Is it, nope, I'm already exercising regularly. So let's see what we got here. Let's see. So far, I'm too tired is winning. No one said it's too boring yet. I'm so glad. Ooh, too tired is still winning. Let's see. 19% of you are already exercising regularly. Woohoo! 53%, 50. Can you guys see this too, or is it just me? I hope you guys are seeing it.
Unfortunately, it's just you and I, Kathy, but it sounds like you're doing a great job just letting people know what the percentages are.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm narrating it like a college football game, right? Okay, so it looks like all the results are in. 45% say I'm too tired. 25% say no time. 10% say something else, and 30% say nothing, I'm already exercising regularly. So that's interesting information. And one of the things that I like to point out is that the I'm too tired part, a lot of times we are thinking that we're too tired, but then it's a chicken and egg question because exercise is going to give you more energy, but you don't have the energy to exercise. So one of the workarounds for that is to kind of trick yourself and tell yourself, you know, I only need to do 5 minutes. So I'll just go for a 5-minute walk. And then what happens is you typically, once you get started, will decide to do more. So that's a kind of little mental trick. But a lot of times people say they don't exercise regularly because they're not motivated. And so I love this little puppy dog, and my tip here is that you could be waiting a long time to get motivated. So what psychologists tell us is that taking action is what's going to get us rolling versus waiting to get motivated is just doesn't usually work for most people. So it's when you think about what is stopping you, what are the mindsets that are getting in your way? A lot of times it's the all or none. So just like I was telling you that my whole philosophy is that speedometer, do a little or a little more, because when we do all or none and we think if I'm going to exercise, it means changing into exercise clothes, driving to a gym, staying there for an hour and driving home, and I definitely don't have time for that. Or I'm too tired for that. Or when you think about getting up early and you say, I can't get up early, you know, I'm already going to bed late enough. So sometimes we want to then tell ourselves, okay, how about if the goal is to exercise 3 times a week, which is a typical recommendation for kind of getting started and getting results, if you commit to 1 workout every weekend, when most people have a little more discretion to how they spend their time, and then maybe get up a little bit early 1 day a week, like pick 1 day a week where you're going to get up a little bit early, and then maybe 1 day a week where you do something after work or at lunchtime at another time slot. Then you've gotten your 3 without an undue stress on any one phase of, part of your schedule. And the other thing is, for instance, like in my boom structure, my level 2 is to do 1 upper body exercise, 1 lower body exercise, and 1 core exercise that doesn't require equipment. And it might be like a push-up and a plank and a lunge. And that's your routine. And to do that regularly is going to give you benefits, and it's going to get you feeling confident and feeling like, hey, maybe it starts getting your wheels turning in your brain to possibly end up doing more. And usually you can tell yourself, I'm not too tired to do that. That's doable. So it's more all about this, making our minds accept lower, kind of lowering those expectations and not thinking it has to be all or none that gets us to do a little bit more. So yeah, so lowering those expectations. Sometimes just getting there is the goal, and then what you're doing can build and grow over time. The other thing that happens when I talk to people about starting exercise routines is if we kind of, sometimes I have an example that I'll give, an unfortunate one first, where I had a client once, a personal training client who wasn't exercising regularly, and he was always canceling appointments, and then he had a heart attack at a fairly young age. He wasn't even 50. So then he was in cardiac rehab, and he didn't cancel his cardiac rehab appointments because suddenly a brush with death will do that to you, and it was kind of a really sad situation that he found himself in. And And then I use another example where I do a lot of speaking in organizations where maybe they have a worksite wellness program. And I'll pose this question. If your employer was going to pay you a bonus of like a $5,000 bonus to everyone who exercised without fail 3 times a week just for 20 minutes over the next couple months, would you suddenly not be too tired and not have time? You know, most people say, yeah, I guess so. So it's never truly about, you know, the time or the you know, whatever we think the reason is. It's always about, you know, what is on our plate right now, what is causing our priorities to shift around. Because if you think about other areas of your life when you have had to shift around your priorities, once something got your attention and got up on the front burner, you had no choice to, or you made a choice to make that a priority. If some of you have children, and you might think to your life before you had a child, like, how did I spend my time before I had a child? Suddenly, I had to shift around how I spend my time. You might say the same thing about caring for an older adult. If you suddenly have caregiving responsibilities for a parent, you're going to reshuffle how you spend your time. So same thing with exercise. If you're suddenly, it's gotten higher on the priority list for one reason or another, you're going to end up figuring it out because you're probably successful professionals in other parts of your life, so you do apply these problem-solving tactics to other things, and so we just want to apply it to our health and fitness habits. So the take-home message for that little tip was more may be better than less, but some is most definitely better than none. And that last mindset that really messes with us is when you have that little voice saying, what's that going to do? Well, 5 minutes isn't going to do any good. Well, it does. The good that it does is it gets you in that habit, and the habit can grow and evolve. And if you don't have a habit, you got nothing. So, because as a personal trainer, I've had people pay me lots of money to design some big, fancy, complicated, full-fledged exercise routine that they have completed all of 27 and not 27, 2.5 times or 2.5 weeks, and then they've wasted their money. So I'd much rather people have a more reasonable approach and let it grow over time. So here's a little picture of me and my dog Biscuit, and I love to show this slide because people laugh. The first picture was a couple summers ago, when I had a procedure done on my foot, and Biscuit just coincidentally had a procedure done in his eye at the vet. And so when I would walk him, people would stop us and say, what happened to the two of you? We were quite a sight. People would joke. I mean, they would just, it was coincidental, but they thought, it was quite good for stories. And then this other picture was like the following summer that is one of my favorite photos because it looks like Biscuit is smiling. I mean, isn't he a photogenic little pup? So this is one summer compared to the next summer. And so I like to show what a difference a year can make, right? That's my theme for this slide. So when you think about exercise or your other health habit changes that you want to make, you only want to start doing something now that you can still see yourself doing a year from now. What can you picture yourself doing a year from now? And that's what you should start doing. We don't want any of this doing too much that's gonna end up turning into nothing. So small changes that you can still do a year from now. So tip number 4 is daily movement. So besides exercising regularly in like a higher intensity way, I'm curious how many of you want to burn more calories, right? This is going to help with that goal of losing weight. It's going to help with a lot of overall goals of being energetic and being healthy. So when we think about burning calories, we think that it's all about exercise, when actually we really need to look at what we're doing all day long, 24 hours a day, 168 hours in a week. So asking yourself, how are you spending your time? When we exercise, even if you're exercising a full hour every single day, that still leaves you with 161 hours unaccounted for, that you want to know, how metabolically active is my body? So when you hear these little tips like take the stairs instead of the elevator, or park farther away, or get a Fitbit, I am a huge fan of Fitbits or Apple Watches or other pedometer type devices, because it really helps us show how much our activity level matters. And one of my favorite classes when I was at Maryland in grad school was metabolic physiology. And that was a class that really analyzed, and this is way back in the day, where we had on paper a little chart with little boxes where every 15 minutes all day we had to put a little notation for whether we were sitting, standing, walking, or doing higher level activity. So like a 1 would be sitting, a 2 would be walking, so a 0 might have been if you're laying down or sleeping. So when you look at this chart of a whole week of all these little boxes of 15-minute increments, and you see how much time we spend in a sitting or lying down position, and then you will start understanding how much of a calorie burning opportunity we have available to us that we might not be taking advantage. So the simple act of standing causes your body to burn 50% more calories than you do when you sit. So if you are having a desk type of job where you're sitting all day long or sitting for 8 hours, then we are actually, research is showing us that that's a separate health risk. And even if you exercise regularly, if you're, in addition to exercising regularly, you're sitting for 8 hours a day, that's a separate health risk. So we all should be getting up and moving around more, standing, walking, and by the time you're doing actual aerobic exercise, it's 8 to 12 times more calories per minute than sitting. But just a simple act of standing and walking around is going to increase that. So sitting for 1 hour a day is not a big deal, but think about what you're doing all day. Do you sit in a car for a long period of time just to scurry into an office and then sit, and scurry back to your car and sit, and then come home and go on the couch? So think about all these opportunities we have. When can we stand more and move more? So, and tip number 5, protect your back. So many of us have back pain. The percentages of people who have back pain gets higher and higher, up to 80% of people. And it ends up leading to a lot of healthcare costs, both direct and indirect, and a lot of discomfort during the day. And a lot of that is due to how our muscles between our lower back and our abdominals are related to each other. Now, I had a guy in Fiverr do these illustrations for me. I don't know why he put this mustache on the guy. I think it's pretty funny. But the picture on the left, where a strong back, where he's got that six-pack there, look at the directions of the arrows. So basically, it's tucking your pelvis under, holding those abs really strong. That's what makes back pain go away. But if someone has more weight on their belly, like the guy on the right, and it called that either the weight or having weak abdominals cause the pelvis to tilt forward, then your back arches more and you end up having back pain. So it's a real simple part recipe that helps back pain. You need to stretch the lower back muscles and strengthen the abdominal muscles. And this is something that, again, could take like 2 minutes a day. And when you think about other things that we do that only take a minute or two, let's say brushing your teeth only takes a couple minutes a day. And a lot of times when I do talks, and again, I wish I could see you guys face to face. I really do, because I would ask you to raise your hand if you brush your teeth every day, okay? And everybody laughs. And we say, well, how long does that take? 2 minutes. Well, what if you wouldn't dream of leaving the house without brushing your teeth? You would never say, nope, I just don't have time. But to protect our back, if you were to drop on the floor, pull your knees to your chest, or a seated version here for someone who has less mobility issues, just kind of sit in a chair, round yourself over. That's how you stretch your back. Stay in that position for 30 seconds is going to help stretch out your lower back muscles. Anything that puts your back into like a C-shaped position. And then the other part about strengthening your abdominal muscles is a plank or an old-fashioned crunch. That's old school. People, sometimes think that crunches are out of vogue right now, but it does help strengthen your abdominal muscles. These are great examples of strengthening your abdominal muscles. Again, doesn't take long to do a plank and then do a lower back stretch and help protect your back. Huge benefits in that, both present and as you're kind of going through years. So the other things that help with back pain is less sitting in general, more moving in general, having better posture. In fact, whenever you even hear that phrase, better posture, how many of you, I'm inviting you to do this if you didn't, I say the phrase better posture, sit up a little straighter, squeeze your shoulder blades together, pull your shoulders back, hold your abdominal muscles in. When you hold your abdominal muscles in on purpose, that is one of the best things we can do all day long for our back health, and also it's going to help us improve our appearance. Now, losing weight, especially if you carry your weight in your midsection, is going to help reduce back pain. And when you're doing aerobic exercise or strength training, just those kinds of exercise, even though it's not targeting your abdominals or your lower back, it causes you to have to hold your abdominal muscles in tight and hold your frame and torso in a more firm position to complete the exercises. So you're kind of getting an added benefit of abdominal strengthening when you're doing those other kinds of exercise. So tip number 6 about loading up on the superfoods. So some of you said that you had goals for eating healthier and also for losing weight. So obviously we need to eat different. And one of the things that I do is I don't focus on fad diets. If anyone has questions about keto or intermittent fasting or any other the new diets, I mean, any of the diet du jours will help you lose weight, yes. And the reason for that is that as a culture, we have very low attention span, and we love to think what's the next best thing and what's novel, and anything novel is going to reduce the total amounts of food that you eat. So if you're doing keto, once you have suddenly lopped off all these categories of food you're not allowed to have, just automatically people tend to eat less. Same thing with intermittent fasting. You've told yourself, I cannot have food between these hours. So most people aren't going to suddenly start pigging out in the hours that they have available to eat. It just doesn't happen that way. Our body gets into these habits. So it's just reducing, they end up working by and large by reducing our overall caloric intake. So I'm not usually a fan of any fad diets, but just some tried and true things that are, again, small changes that we can still see ourselves doing a year from now. So have you stared at this guy's belly and these donuts long enough? I think this is pretty funny when you think about, okay, these are not the superfoods. So I said we're talking about superfoods. So they are not these. But the situation that we're dealing with is that fast food is everywhere, and we are a nation of poor nutrition and quick meals, eating on the run, and we are paying quite a price with obesity, and also, even if you're not overweight, poor nutrition has health risks. And I show this slide. This is a nice snapshot, but the CDC has these statistics for every year, and they changed the color system after about 2010, so it's not as impactful, but the trend has continued. If you were to look at this and look at 1990, when most of the states in the country had less than 14% of the population obese. And when you got to 2000, there was no more light blue. There was one medium blue. They had to introduce 2 new colors of the dark blue and the yellow to have up to 24% of some of those states were in the obese category. And then by the time it got to 2010, look at that, a couple more new colors, no more blue at all. So when we look at the trajectory we're on as a nation, we have to change something. And I put this waving the white flag because we know that our poor eating choices are causing all kinds of things. And that when we want to change our habits, I love to focus on these superfoods, and you guys are going to get a handout that lists all these, so you don't have to jot it all down right now, but when you eat more of the superfoods, you are going to give yourself less opportunity to eat the less virtuous foods. And these foods are my favorites for impacting all of the goals that we have all at the same time. These kind of foods are going to help with weight loss. They're going to help with increasing your energy. They're going to help your brain fitness. And a lot of times I do a lot of talks on brain fitness too. And it's the same darn list of foods that's going to help your brain. It's also going to help your body and help your energy level. So love the idea of loading up on the superfoods rather than going from a point of view of what not to eat. But the list of what we should eat isn't new. And again, like I said, I don't believe in fads. I do believe in a plant-based diet. The technical term is a flexitarian, which is kind of a funny word because you could be eating anything, Pop-Tarts, or flexible means you're flexible. But it just means you don't have to be a full-on vegan to get the benefits of a plant-based diet. So eating more plants and less animal products is good for all of us, as is eating more fiber, whole grains. We know we're supposed to be having less sugar, and we know what we're supposed to be eating less of. This is not new. I'm not presenting it to you as if it's new, but I think what we want, what the goal is, again, is what are the small changes that I can make now. I'm a big fan of using the app MyFitnessPal, which is free. There are other apps as well, but I love how MyFitnessPal works. And the reason why is that if you've never logged your food, once you log it, even for a couple of days, you will be eyes wide open. Suddenly you'll know what the heck you're eating. And that's kind of one of the biggest problems that a lot of us have, is that we're not really sure how it's adding up. So people who are successful in weight loss and successful in changing their eating habits, usually they use a tool to track what they eat. So those of you who said your goals had to do with eating healthy and weight loss, I invite you to check out my Fitness Pal. You will not regret it. Even if you don't decide to log long-term is the best strategy, but even if you log short-term, you will definitely get something out of it. So tip number 7 is about hydration, and I put this ... and that means water, because so many people think, well, what counts as hydration? And yes, there are other things that count as hydration, but really the best source of hydration is water, just true water. Other things are going to, usually have something else in it, either sugar or calories, or even bubbles. I think that people who are now starting to enjoy just the carbonated waters that are flavored, I mean, carbonation bloats you. It's not usually the thing that's going to make most people feel the best. But we need our hydration for a variety of reasons. When we're not well hydrated, we are definitely not going to feel as energetic as we want to. So the 45% of you who said you were too tired to exercise, it'd be great to think about how much water you're drinking, because being dehydrated is one of the biggest causes of fatigue, believe it or not. And so when we think about what we want and we're feeling tired and people think they need caffeine, or they think they want even more than just regular caffeine, a 4-hour energy, I hope y'all aren't using that kind of a thing. Water is going to give you energy more than anything else you can do. Joint lubrication, sleep quality, how well our brains function, all kinds of things. So water. And they used to be talking about what's the actual recommendation for water. Used to say 8-ounce glasses. There are studies that came out that said that that's bogus. They don't really know exactly how much, but you definitely know you're drinking enough water when your urine is pale in color. So that's one of the best ways to look at whether or not your intake is high enough. The other thing, I have a big water bottle that I fill up, and I try to drain it once in the morning when I'm exercising. I try to fill it up and empty a whole nother one during the work day, and then have another one in the evening. So that's how I try to make sure that I'm tracking my water and getting enough. The next thing is getting enough sleep. So again, only a smaller percentage of you said one of your main health and fitness goals this year was to get more sleep, but sleep is going to affect a lot of what we do for meeting your other goals. So here's my third poll. I'd like to know how many of you think you're generally getting enough sleep. Who thinks they're getting enough sleep? And the results are coming in. So far we have 71% of you have voted. We have a few more. We have a little more time. This is all the votes coming in. So 53% of you say yes, and 47% of you say no. So almost half and half. So what is enough sleep? So enough sleep is around 7 to 8 hours a day. And we know that sleep deprivation is a big issue. So many people are having issues. It's linked to their weight loss problems. People are trying to lose weight, and your body does not release pounds as easily when we are not getting enough sleep. And there are lots of people suffering from sleep disorders and even dozing off at the wheel. But the reason why I like to focus so much on sleep is that it is a vital time of tissue repair and memory retention. And some of you might have read somewhere or heard about the link between sleep and dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Researchers are finding that when we're sleeping is the time when those plaques that can develop in our brain tissue that lead to Alzheimer's, that's when our brain is clearing those out, is during our sleep time. And working in the wellness industry, there are a lot of people who are predicting that sleep is going to be maybe one of the next big wellness trends. Like, we're all about exercise, we're all about healthy eating, that being all about getting enough sleep is something that is coming on the horizon, that we are just starting to appreciate just how important sleep is for our overall health and wellness. Okay, so tip number 9, knowing and using your stress busters. So again, knowing them is one thing, using them can be a whole nother thing. So what are some of the things that are going to be helpful for you? So is it going to be deep breathing? So helpful for stress is if you close your eyes and take just a couple of deep breaths, it slows your heart rate. It slows all the biological processes down that the stress response physiologically gets going. Going for a walk, calling a friend, all of these things have not only a mental effect on feeling less stress, but they can have a physiological effect on our stress level. And the reason why stress is important for us to analyze or to address if it's an issue for us is that stress causes, for instance, it causes our liver to produce more cholesterol. That's one of the reasons why it's a separate risk factor for heart disease. It also causes our blood pressure to go up. And when you have high blood pressure, there's no symptoms. So we can have high blood pressure and have that be tearing away at our blood vessels, making them less able to expand and contract when needed because that pressure on the blood vessels is too high all around the clock. So when we think about stress and the impact it has, it also impacts our cognitive functioning and our overall quality of life. So when we don't address stress, it's going to impact not only our quality of life, but also our disease risk factor and a multitude of other things. So most of us think, oh, I'll reduce my stress, or my stress will go down after this one project or after whatever it is. But if we're honest with ourselves, we know that once whatever project is finished, the next project comes, or the next big thing comes down the pike. So it's really about figuring out what are our stress busters that we can employ now, like not later, not just wait to relax later, but that day in and day out, what are the things that we can reach for and we can do that can calm that physiological process down and the cognitive process down in our bodies in the moment. So closing your eyes, visualizing a better yourself on the beach, all of these things can be helpful strategies. So we need our go-to ones for ourselves. So bringing it home here, tip number 10, because our goal here in our talk is for me to be talking for 45 minutes and then at 12:45 to open it up for questions. So this is the last tip, which is focus on consistency with the basics. So, I actually went to see another speaker last weekend, and he was a former basketball coach, and he was talking about how he saw I was going to say Kanye West. That's the wrong name. The K word came out. Kobe Bryant. Okay, he was able to go to watch Kobe Bryant at a basketball practice, and he was surprised to see that Kobe Bryant was doing the same drills as this basketball coach taught to his 5th grade basketball team. And so, he's wondering, gosh, why is Kobe Bryant, one of the best basketball players on the planet, doing the same drills the 5th graders do? And his answer was because the basics work, because what do you think made him the best basketball player on the planet? So it's that same phrase I said in the beginning. It's not just about knowing what to do. It's about actually doing it day in and day out, that these are the habits that I have in my life, that I've figured out a way to make these things fit into my life on a regular basis so that they can lead to the results. And I love this phrase here: successful people are simply those who make a habit out of doing what unsuccessful people don't like to do. How many of us like to clean the toilet? How many of us like to, do some of these things? We know that the important things in life don't come easily. We know that it's when we put forth effort to something that is worth doing. And we also know both intuitively, and we've seen examples in our life, in our work life, and in other aspects of our life where we have put our efforts into something and how they can lead to our success, and that when we don't have our habits consistent on a long-term basis, we're not able to string enough consistency together that we're not going to get where we're going. This is a repeat of that earlier phrase, one of my favorite phrases about habit is more important than content. And a lot of us need that motivational edge. That's why many of us join either an exercise class or a running club or something, so we're around like-minded people who are can help keep us motivated along the way. Stringing these weeks and months and years together to have our health habits actually give us the benefits that we want often is much more successful when we are doing it in a social setting. So, again, these are more of my mantras. A healthy lifestyle is progressive, and it's not as hard as you think, but we really can't afford not to. So here's a little summary of the top 10 little list that we had here. And I am going to be available for follow-up help for TERPs. I made a special little web page that I have available to you to kind of get in touch with me that will help you with whatever your specific questions are. And I also love y'all to keep in touch. I'm not hugely active on my social media. I'm supposed to be posting more. I don't post as much as I want, but I do post stuff on Instagram and Facebook under my Inspiring Vitality handle. And also LinkedIn. Love to connect with other TERPs and see what you're doing and be a resource to you in the future. So I know Ellie's got the controls, and I think she's going to open it up for questions now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kathy. I'm going to let everyone take a moment to type your questions into the question box, but I'm going to kick us off with a question around the superfoods you were talking about, Kathy. I know a lot of folks struggle with eating healthy and kind of balancing their budget. Could you speak a little bit about what that process has been like for you, or if you have any advice for folks who are trying to maintain a budget while also eating healthy?
Yeah, a lot of times when people add up and they look at how much money they might spend on fast food or fast casual food, that it's much cheaper to prepare food at home. And one of the most economical ways you can do that is through batch cooking and meal planning. And I know that sounds like a boring thing of the past, but actually when you follow there's a lot of people who are really good at it on Instagram and some of the social media, where you look at batch cooking things on the weekends for all week. Like one of my favorite things to make is I make a black bean, sweet potato, and lentil chili, like vegetarian chili, and I'll cook it in the crock pot on the weekend, and I'll portion it out to bring for lunch all week. Or I'll do roasted vegetables on a whole cookie sheet of roasted broccoli. And to do like roasted vegetables, I'll just put a bunch of broccoli or whatever else on a cookie sheet, drizzle a little olive oil on it, and you put it in the oven, and then you've got, you can have that kind of stuff available all the time. So it's more about, when you talk about budget, it's more about as compared to the money we often spend eating out.
Great. That's a good point about eating out. I feel like that could be a culprit or the devil sometimes. We have another question regarding kind of how can you do some of those quick exercises, those quick workouts? Do you have any apps that you recommend or any programs for people who are just looking to kind of start that process, but not necessarily, like you said, drive to the gym, do a full hour there, and then go home?
Right, absolutely. I have the plan that I recommend that's in those 4 levels. It's in Boom. I have videos of the exercises, and I've got free downloads for all those exercises. So I set up that web page. If anyone wants to just enter your email address there, I can email you links to my Boom Extras web page that has all the cheat sheets and the videos for the exercises for all of the levels that I recommend that you can do at home. That's definitely my sweet spot as far as the kind of clients I work with are people who don't want to go to a gym, who just want to do kind of the bare minimum. They want to do it at home. They want to knock it out and get it done. So I'm actually going to be having little Zoom tutorials, like where I can show people how to do the exercises with the exercise tubing and balls and just a few little things that you can have at home. So the exercises that I recommend, I'd be happy to hook you guys up with the websites and the information that's from my book.
Great, thank you. That would be awesome. It looks like we've covered all of our questions. Is there anything, Kathy, that you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
Well, I'm looking at thinking about what I cover when I'm, again, got this blindfold on. I don't know what y'all are still wondering about. So no, I'm trying to think. I mean, I tried to cram in as much as I could about these different areas. I hope that the tips that I shared were helpful, but it really is all about the mindset and all about the small steps and the having the support, whether it's social support or family support or whoever your significant other is, and kind of doing this stuff together. Because most of us, if we're just left to trying to do something by ourselves in the basement without being involved with anybody, then we're usually less successful. But I love this opportunity to speak to fellow Terps. I loved my time at the University of Maryland. Again, I didn't get any intel on the age range of those of you who are listening, so I'm not sure how many of you were around when the VU was around, like I was, and all the different memories I have versus the memories you have from the years you were there. But I definitely invite you to keep in touch with me, because I hate it that I can't see all of you. So I would love for you to go to my website and be able to connect with me so that I can help you with any individual follow-up questions that you have. That's definitely just what I do, and I'm here to help, and I would love to be a resource for all of you Terps.
Wonderful. Well, as Kathy mentioned, feel free to contact her directly if you want more information or you want to discuss your own personal situation. And again, as a reminder, I will be sending out the slides and Kathy's contact information and handouts to you via email. And then huge thank you to Kathy for joining us today, and thank you fellow Terps for joining in on the fun during this webinar. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and go Terps.